I'm 32 male, what you call a planner. I don't mean I have a 5-year plan written in a Moleskine notebook. I mean that I think 3 steps ahead. In my work as a logistics architect for a major shipping firm, it's my job to anticipate problems before they happen. It's a trait that has served me well financially. I'm not mega rich, but I'm very comfortable. I made smart investments early. For the past 2 years, I thought I was planning a life with my fiancée, Corinne, 29. She was vibrant, funny, the kind of person who lights up a room. Her mother, Delia, was a presence. Always there, always advising Corinne, always complimenting my taste, my ambition, my earning potential. It felt a little much sometimes, but I chalked it up to a proud mother. We got engaged 6 months ago. The wedding planning was in full swing, mostly handled by Corinne and Delia. My job was to nod and approve the escalating costs. I was fine with it. I loved her. The moment it all cracked was last Tuesday. We were at a nice restaurant, one of those places with cloth napkins and tiny forks. We were celebrating a new contract I'd landed at work, a big one that came with a significant commission. She was swirling her wine, smiling that dazzling smile. "You're just so brilliant, Leo. It's amazing." I brushed it off. "It was a team effort." "No, it was you," she insisted, leaning in. "I am so glad I don't have to worry about the future." She then let out a little laugh, a light, airy sound that suddenly felt like ice in my veins. "I don't need a job. Your future earnings are my retirement plan." She said like a cute joke, a little quip between a loving couple. But her eyes weren't joking. There was a glint in them, a bright, hard, possessive glint. Delia has the same glint. My entire thought process just stopped and rebooted. All the little things suddenly clicked into place. The way she quit her marketing job 3 months ago to focus on the wedding full-time. The way Delia would always ask about my investment portfolio at family dinners. The constant "we deserve this" attitude whenever they picked a new, more expensive vendor for the wedding. I didn't argue. I didn't get angry. My training kicked in. Acknowledge the data point. Analyze. Plan the response. I just smiled back at her, a tight, controlled smile. Smart. She beamed, thinking I was complimenting her wit. The rest of the dinner was a blur. I was on autopilot, but in my head, a new logistical plan was forming. Not for shipping containers, but for my life. The next morning, I told Corinne I had an early, important meeting. I didn't. I met with a highly recommended financial advisor who specializes in asset protection. I explained my situation. He listened without judgment and laid out several options. The one that stood out was an irrevocable trust. For the uninitiated, it means what it says. Irrevocable. The assets I put into it are no longer mine. They belong to the trust. I'm a beneficiary, but I don't own them. They cannot be considered marital assets. They cannot be touched in a divorce. It's a fortress. By Friday, the process was in motion. I transferred the bulk of my premarital assets, my stock portfolio, the down payment I'd saved for our house, my emergency fund, into the trust. The beneficiary upon my death is my sister. This morning, I sat Corinne down. I kept my voice calm and gentle. "Honey, with the wedding getting closer and our finances about to merge, I think it's smart for us to get a prenup. Just a standard thing, to protect both of us. My lawyer can draft it." Her face tightened immediately. "A prenup? Leo, don't you trust me?" "Of course I do," I said smoothly. "This isn't about trust. It's about being responsible adults. It protects you, too. It ensures you're provided for if something happens." She didn't like it, but after a call with Delia, she reluctantly agreed, probably thinking she could negotiate it to be heavily in her favor. She insisted her lawyer be present. Perfect. The meeting is scheduled for next week. My lawyer, a shark named Ms. Albright, has been fully briefed on the trust. She knows exactly what her role is. Corinne and her mom think they're walking into a negotiation. They're actually walking into a notification. Update 1. The meeting happened yesterday. I feel hollow, but also strangely calm. We all sat in Ms. Albright's sterile, beige conference room. Me, Corinne, Delia, who insisted on coming as emotional support, and their lawyer, a slick guy named Gary. Gary started by saying they'd received the draft prenup and had some aggressive notes. He slid a piece of paper across the table. Corinne is giving up her career prospects to be a wife and future mother. We feel a 50-50 split of all future earnings and assets, including current ones, is more than fair. I almost laughed. Ms. Albright just gave a thin smile and didn't even look at the paper. "Thank you, Gary," she said, her voice crisp. "That's a useful starting point. However, there's a key piece of information we need to discuss first, which renders most of this moot. Leo has recently restructured his finances for estate planning purposes." She then spent the next 5 minutes explaining, in clear, simple, devastating terms, what an irrevocable trust was. She explained that roughly 90% of my net worth was no longer legally mine. It belonged to the trust. It could not be considered a marital asset. Ever. I watched Corinne's face. The polite smile faltered. Her brow furrowed in confusion. She looked at Gary, but he was looking at Ms. Albright, his own smug expression slowly dissolving. Delia was the first to speak. "So, what does that mean in English?" Ms. Albright turned her cool gaze to her. "It means that the assets in the trust are not on the table. Not now, not in 10 years, not ever. The prenup will only apply to the wealth Leo accumulates from this point forward, which he is happy to divide in a fair and equitable manner." The silence was deafening. Corinne's face went from confused to pale to blotchy red. "You did what?" she whispered, looking at me. "You gave your money away?" "I moved it for long-term security, honey," I said, using my calmest voice. "Whose security?" Delia snapped, her voice rising. "You moved it so she couldn't have it." Gary finally spoke up, flustered. "This is highly unusual. It could be seen as an attempt to hide assets." Ms. Albright cut him off. "It's perfectly legal, Gary, and you know it. The assets aren't hidden. They're in a registered trust. They just aren't Leo's anymore. He did it before the final prenup was negotiated. Nothing fraudulent about it." Corinne started to hyperventilate. Just little, shallow breaths. "So the house, my ring, the wedding." "The ring is yours, of course," I said gently. "And I'm still happy to pay for the wedding we agreed on. And we can still save for a house with our future income." The word "our future income" seemed to trigger something. "My income," she squeaked. "I don't have an income. I quit my job for us." "And I supported that decision," I said. "But this changes the landscape a bit. We'll have to be a team." That's when Delia lost it. "A team? You snake. You tricked her. You let her plan this beautiful life with you knowing you were pulling the rug out from under her." The panic was rolling off Corinne in waves. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw pure, unadulterated hatred in her eyes. "Undo it," she hissed. "I can't," I said simply. "It's irrevocable." "Then we're not signing this stupid prenup," she shouted, standing up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. "That's your choice," Ms. Albright said calmly. "But Leo has been clear. No prenup, no wedding." They stormed out. Gary mumbled an apology and scurried after them. I just sat there, listening to their angry voices fade down the hallway. Ms. Albright looked at me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, though my hands were shaking slightly. "Yeah, I think so. The fallout has been loud. A storm of texts and voicemails. They're alternating between rage, 'You're a monster, a liar,' and tearful pleading, 'How could you do this to me? I thought you loved me.' Delia is the worst. She left me a 3-minute voicemail about how I've ruined Corinne's life and stolen her future. This stolen part is what gets me, as if it was ever hers to begin with. I haven't responded to any of them. I just needed a day of quiet. Update 2. I thought things would calm down, that they'd either accept it or walk away. I was wrong. The entitlement has gone nuclear. First, they tried to get my family involved. Delia called my mom, sobbing about how I was financially abusing Corinne. My mom is a sweet, non-confrontational woman, but she's not stupid. She called me. I explained the retirement plan comment, and she went quiet for a moment before saying, "Oh, well, that certainly paints a picture." The family front was closed to them. So they escalated. 2 weeks ago, I came home from work to find Corinne in my apartment. She still had a key. She was sitting on the couch, crying. But something was off. "I can't believe you," she sobbed. "I thought we were building a life." Then I noticed it. My grandfather's whittling collection was gone from the mantelpiece. He was a quiet man, a carpenter, and he used to carve these small, intricate wooden birds. Each one represents a story or a memory from my childhood. They aren't worth much money, but they're my most prized possessions. They are my connection to him. My blood ran cold. "Corinne, where are the birds?" Her tears stopped instantly. Her expression hardened. "They're safe. They're a symbol of the future you promised me. I'll give them back when you dissolve that trust and give me the security I deserve." She was holding my grandfather's memory hostage. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I looked at her, and the last shred of love I had for the woman, I thought she was just evaporated. It was like looking at a stranger. "Get out of my apartment," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Not without a guarantee," she said, trying to regain the upper hand. "Get out. Now, or I will call the police and have you removed for theft." I held up my phone, my thumb hovering over the call button. Her eyes widened. She wasn't expecting that. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and sneered. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." Then she was gone. The next day, I had the locks changed. Then, a letter arrived from Gary. A formal demand for the return of gifts given to Corinne during the engagement, citing emotional distress. The list was insane. Half the cost of every vacation we ever took, designer bags I'd bought her, and at the bottom of the list, a collection of antique, hand-carved avian sculptures, valued at an estimated $50,000. $50,000. They had them appraised. They took something deeply personal and slapped a price tag on it. My lawyer laughed when I sent it to her. She sent back a single-sentence email. "Let them try." She then drafted a response that basically told Gary to pound sand and included a police report number for the theft of the carvings. The silence after that was eerie. For a week, I heard nothing. I was starting to think maybe, just maybe, they'd finally given up. Then I found out what they were doing. A mutual friend called me, sounding uncomfortable. "Hey man, I don't want to get involved, but Delia has been telling people that you cleared out your accounts and were planning on leaving Corinne at the altar with all the wedding debt. They weren't just trying to get money. They were trying to ruin me. They were painting me as a con artist, the villain who romanced poor Corinne and then tried to leave her destitute. The narrative was clever. It was designed to isolate me. But the thing about my job is that I document everything. Every vendor contract, every payment. And I'd made sure every single wedding-related payment came from my personal checking account, the one not in the trust, with a clear memo line. The paper trail was pristine. They thought they were fighting a war of emotion. They had no idea I was fighting a war of logistics, and I was about to deploy my assets. Final update. It's over. The final act didn't happen in a lawyer's office or a courtroom. It happened via certified mail. After their smear campaign started, I knew I had to end it for good. I sent Corinne a calm, formal email officially breaking the engagement. I wish her the best and told her my lawyer would handle any further communication. The next day, the real fun began. I started getting calls and emails from the wedding vendors. The venue, the caterer, the florist. Apparently, Corinne and Delia had told them that I was handling all the final payments and had provided my contact info. The bill for the venue alone was staggering. They had upgraded to the Platinum Deluxe package without telling me, a package that included an ice sculpture and a string quartet. The non-refundable deposits they had paid were a fraction of the total cost they had committed to. This was their master plan. They assumed I'd be so scared of lawsuits and credit damage that I would just pay everything to make it go away. It was a classic pincer movement. Smear my reputation on one side, hit me with massive bills on the other. They underestimated me. Ms. Albright drafted a formal, legally airtight letter. We sent a copy via certified mail to every single vendor. The letter stated in no uncertain terms that I was no longer engaged to Corinne, that I was not a signatory on any of their contracts, that I had fulfilled all financial promises I had personally made, and that any further outstanding balances were the sole responsibility of the person who signed the agreement. Delia, in most cases, who had proudly put her name on everything to manage it all. We attached copies of the signed contracts with her signature clearly visible. The response was immediate. The vendors, who had been sending polite reminders, turned into sharks smelling blood in the water. But they weren't coming for me. They were going after Delia and Corinne. A week later, I got a frantic call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my ex-fiancé's father, Ron. A quiet, beaten-down man I'd always felt a bit sorry for. He never spoke much when Delia was around. "Leo, you have to call them off," he pleaded. "They're getting letters from collections agencies. The venue is suing us." Delia, she used a credit card linked to our home equity line to pay the deposits. "They're threatening to put a lien on the house." He sounded broken. I felt a pang of pity for him, but none for them. "Ron," I said, my voice even. I didn't call anyone on. I just informed them who was actually responsible for the bills. Delia and Corinne made those choices, signed those papers. This is just the consequence. I heard Delia screaming in the background, something about how I was a monster. Ron sighed. "I know, son. I know. I had to ask." The final piece fell into place. Last week, I received a package by courier. No note. Inside, nestled in bubble wrap, were my grandfather's carved birds. All of them. I checked each one. They were all there, unharmed. There was also a cashier's check inside for the full value of the engagement ring. They had surrendered. The threat of losing their house was a consequence even their entitlement couldn't overcome. Selling the ring and returning my property was the price of their capitulation. They needed every penny they could scrape together. I heard through that same mutual friend that things are bad. Delia had to sell her luxury SUV. Corinne is working 2 retail jobs, looking tired and angry all the time. They've apparently had to rent out 2 rooms in their house to make ends meet. They aren't speaking to most of their old friends because they're too humiliated. I don't feel happy. I don't feel vindicated. I just feel quiet. I look at the wooden birds on my mantelpiece. They're not a trophy of a war I won. They're a reminder. A reminder that some problems can't be solved with love or patience. They can only be solved with logistics. A reminder that sometimes the smartest move isn't to fight, but to build a fortress so impenetrable they defeat themselves trying to get in. I lost 2 years and a future I thought I wanted, but I protected my life's work and my grandfather's memory. And for a planner like me, that's a trait I can live with.